The Apache widow whispered. "We have no home," the rancher said. "Then come stay with me." She stood at the edge of the dry road just before sunrise, holding her children close as the cold morning wind moved through their thin clothes. The land around her was quiet, almost empty, yet her heart felt loud with pain. Only weeks ago, she had a home, a place where her husband's voice filled the evenings and his footsteps were familiar on the ground outside their small house. Now there was only silence. Her husband was gone, taken by illness after a short struggle that gave her no time to prepare her heart. He had been strong, respected, and deeply connected to the land. Without him, everything felt uncertain. She was an Apache widow, proud of her roots and her people, but pride did not build walls or keep children warm at night. After her husband's death, the land they lived on became unsafe. Some neighbors avoided her, others looked at her with pity, and a few saw her weakness as an opportunity to push her away. She tried to stay strong, telling herself that she had survived hard seasons before, but this time felt different. This time she was not only carrying her own grief, but also the future of her children. Each night after her husband was buried, she lay awake listening to the sounds around her. Every creak, every distant voice made her heart beat faster. She worried about strangers passing by, about people who might take advantage of her situation. Her children slept beside her, unaware of how heavy her thoughts were. She watched their faces in the dim light and promised herself that she would protect them no matter what. But promises are easier to make than to keep when there is no roof over your head. Food became harder to find. Work was not easy for a woman alone, especially one caring for children. She took small tasks when she could, cleaning, helping elders, doing whatever was offered. But it was never enough. Each day she counted what little she had left and wondered how long it would last. The community that once felt like family slowly drifted away. Some people had their own struggles and could not help. Others simply chose not to get involved. The day she decided to leave was one of the hardest choices she had ever made. She packed only what she could carry. A few clothes, a blanket, and small items that reminded her children of their father. She did not cry while packing. Her tears had already fallen too many times. Instead, she moved quietly, carefully, as if loud movements might break what little strength she had left. As they walked away from the place that once felt like home, memories followed her with every step. She remembered laughter around the fire, her husband teaching their children stories about their ancestors, and the feeling of safety she once took for granted. Now that safety felt like a distant dream. The road ahead was unknown, but staying behind was no longer an option. Her children asked questions she struggled to answer. "Where are we going?" one of them asked softly. She paused before replying, choosing her words carefully. She did not want to scare them. "We are going to find a place where we can rest," she said. It was not a lie, but it was not a full truth either. Inside, she did not know where that place would be. As the sun rose higher, the road became warmer, but her heart remained heavy. She kept her eyes forward, refusing to look back. She believed that looking back would make her weak. The land stretched wide and empty, and each step felt like a test of her courage. People passed them occasionally, some offering quick glances, others ignoring them completely. No one stopped. No one asked questions. By midday, her children were tired. Their steps slowed and their voices became quiet. She knew they needed rest, but resting in the open felt risky. Still, she had no choice. She found a small shaded area near the road and sat down, pulling her children close. She shared what little food she had left, giving them more than herself. Hunger was easier to ignore than their tired faces. As they rested, her thoughts returned to her husband. She wondered what he would have done in her place. He had always believed in kindness, even when the world was not kind in return. He trusted that people at their core could choose to do good. She wanted to believe that too, but loss had made her careful. Trust felt dangerous now. The afternoon passed slowly. The heat pressed down on them and her strength began to fade. She stood again, lifting her youngest child when their legs could no longer carry them. Each step forward felt heavier than the last. Still, she did not stop. Stopping meant giving up, and giving up was not an option. As the day moved toward evening, fear began to creep in again. Night would come soon, and with it, uncertainty. She whispered quiet prayers under her breath, asking for guidance, for protection, for a sign that they were not alone in the world. She did not ask for comfort or ease, only for a chance to keep her children safe. Her voice trembled as she spoke to herself, reminding herself why she was still walking. She was walking for her children's future, for the promise she made to them and to herself. Even when her body ached and her heart felt empty, she kept going. As the sky began to change color, she saw movement in the distance. A ranch fence, wide land, and signs of life appeared ahead. She slowed her steps, unsure whether this was hope or another disappointment. Her heart raced as she approached, her mind filled with questions. Would they be turned away again? Would kindness find them at last? She stopped just short of the open land, holding her children close. Her voice was barely more than a whisper as she spoke, not to anyone else but to the truth she had been carrying all day. "We have no home," she said softly. The words felt heavy but also honest. Saying them out loud made them real. In that moment, she did not know that her life was about to change. She only knew that she had reached the edge of her strength. What lay ahead was uncertain, but she had taken every step she could. The road behind her was filled with loss, and the road ahead held only a small, fragile hope. The land in front of her looked different from the empty road she had walked all day. The fence was strong but simple, stretching across wide open fields. There were cattle moving slowly in the distance, and a small house stood far back, steady and quiet. Smoke rose gently from a chimney, a sign that someone was there, living, working, breathing. For the first time in days, she felt something close to relief, though fear still sat tightly in her chest. She stood still, unsure what to do next. Her children clung to her clothes, sensing her hesitation. She did not want to step forward uninvited, but she also knew she could not turn back. The sun was sinking fast, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. Night would come soon, and she needed to decide. As she gathered her courage, a man appeared from the side of the field. He walked slowly, with the calm confidence of someone used to hard work and long days outdoors. His hat was worn, his clothes dusty, and his posture steady. He noticed them almost immediately and stopped walking, studying the scene in front of him with quiet attention. The widow's heart began to beat faster. She had faced many looks over the past weeks, some full of pity, others cold or judging. She prepared herself for another moment of being ignored or turned away. Still, she lifted her head and met his eyes, refusing to shrink or hide. The rancher did not rush toward them or speak loudly. He stayed where he was for a moment, making sure not to scare the children. Then he took a few careful steps forward. His voice, when he spoke, was calm and respectful. He asked if they were all right and whether they needed water. There was no demand in his tone, only concern. She nodded slowly, unsure of how much to say. Words felt heavy, like stones in her mouth. She answered politely, keeping her voice low. She told him they had been walking all day. He noticed the tired look in her eyes, the dust on the children's shoes, and the way she held the youngest close as if letting go would cause everything to fall apart. Without another word, he turned and walked back toward the house. For a brief moment, fear rushed through her again. She wondered if she had made a mistake. But soon he returned, carrying a small container of water and some simple food. He placed them gently on the ground a short distance away, giving her space and respect. The children looked at her with questioning eyes. She hesitated, then nodded. They drank eagerly and she followed, feeling strength slowly return to her body. The rancher watched quietly, not asking questions, not staring. When they finished, he finally spoke again, asking where they were headed. This time, she did not look away. She swallowed hard and spoke the truth she had been holding inside all day. She told him that her husband had passed away, that they had no place left to stay, and that she was trying to find safety for her children. Her voice shook slightly, but she did not cry. She had cried enough before this moment. The rancher listened without interrupting. He did not rush her or offer empty words. When she finished, there was a short silence between them. The wind moved through the grass, and the sounds of the land filled the space where words were missing. He finally spoke, choosing his words carefully. He told her his name and explained that he lived alone on the ranch. He said the land was big, sometimes too big for one person. He admitted that life had not always been easy for him either, though he did not share details. There was a sense that he understood loss in his own way. She studied his face, looking for signs of danger or false kindness. Instead, she saw tired eyes, strong lines shaped by sun and work, and a steady calm that made her feel slightly less afraid. Still, trust did not come easily. She had learned how quickly life could change. He asked where they planned to sleep that night. She hesitated before answering honestly. She had no plan. She hoped to find shelter somewhere, anywhere. Saying it out loud made her feel exposed, but also relieved. The rancher looked toward the sky, then back at the road behind them. He understood what night on the open land could bring, especially for a woman alone with children. He took a slow breath and then said something that caught her completely off guard. He told her she could stay on his land for the night, just a place to rest, nothing more. He explained that there was a small spare room and enough space for them to be safe. He made it clear that there were no expectations, no conditions, just shelter. The widow froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. Kindness without demand felt unfamiliar now. Her instincts told her to be careful, to protect herself and her children at all costs. She asked him why he would help strangers. He answered simply. He said he believed that when people have the chance to help, they should. He said the land had given him enough and there was room to share. There was no pride in his voice, only honesty. She looked down at her children, then back at him. She thought of the long road behind her, the fear of the coming night, and the promise she had made to keep them safe. Slowly, she nodded. She agreed to stay, just for the night. As they walked toward the house, she stayed alert, watching every movement. The rancher walked ahead, keeping a respectful distance, letting her move at her own pace. The house was simple but clean, filled with the quiet warmth of a lived-in space. He showed them where they could rest and brought extra blankets. He pointed out where water was and where they could wash up. He did not linger or ask personal questions. Instead, he wished them a peaceful night and stepped away, giving them privacy. As the door closed behind him, the widow felt her knees weaken. She sat down slowly, her children curling up beside her. The room was quiet, safe, and warm. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. That night, as her children slept, she stayed awake, listening to the sounds of the ranch. The soft movement of animals, the distant creak of wood, the steady rhythm of a place at rest. Her fear slowly softened into cautious hope. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. She did not know how long kindness would last or whether this place could truly become safe. But for this moment they were sheltered. They were not alone. Outside, the rancher sat on the porch, looking out at the land he had worked for years. He thought about the woman and her children, about the quiet strength he had seen in her eyes. He knew inviting them in would change things, but he also knew turning them away would have changed him. That night marked the beginning of something neither of them fully understood yet. Two lives shaped by loss had crossed paths, not by plan but by chance and choice. And under the wide open sky, something new had quietly begun. Morning arrived quietly on the ranch. Soft light slipped through the small window and rested on the wooden floor. The widow opened her eyes slowly, unsure for a moment where she was. Then she remembered the long road, the fence, the rancher's calm voice. She listened closely. There was no danger sound, No raised voices, no rushing steps, only the distant movement of animals and the gentle sound of wind outside. Her children were still asleep beside her, their faces peaceful in a way she had not seen for many days. She sat up carefully, not wanting to wake them. For the first time in a long while, her body had rested, not deeply, but enough to give her strength. She whispered a quiet thank you, not to anyone in particular, just to the moment itself. She stood and straightened her clothes, feeling a mix of gratitude and worry. Staying one night was one thing. Facing the next day was another. She did not know what the rancher would expect now that morning had come. She prepared herself to hear that it was time to move on. When she stepped outside, the cool air touched her face. The land looked different in daylight. It felt open and alive. The fields stretched far, and the animals moved calmly as if nothing in the world was wrong. The rancher was already awake, working near the barn. He noticed her and paused, lifting his hand in a simple greeting. He did not rush toward her. Instead, he finished what he was doing and then walked over slowly. He asked if they had rested well and if the children were hungry. His tone was the same as the night before, steady, respectful, without pressure. She nodded and thanked him quietly. Her voice was still careful, still guarded. He told her breakfast was ready if they wanted some. He said it like an offer, not a command. She hesitated, then agreed. Her children soon joined them, rubbing their eyes, looking around with curiosity. The meal was simple, but it felt rich because it was shared in peace. The children ate eagerly, and the rancher smiled faintly as he watched them. He asked them small, gentle questions about what they liked to eat and whether they enjoyed animals. They answered shyly at first, then more freely as they relaxed. The widow stayed quiet, observing everything. She noticed how the rancher moved, how he never raised his voice, how he listened more than he spoke. These small details mattered to her. She had learned to read people carefully. After breakfast, she stood and offered to help clean up. He looked surprised for a moment, then nodded. They worked side by side in silence. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind that allowed thoughts to settle. Once they finished, the rancher finally spoke about what lay ahead. He said she did not need to leave that day. He explained that the ranch had room and there was work if she wanted it. Nothing heavy, nothing forced. He made it clear again that there were no hidden expectations. He simply did not like the idea of sending her and the children back onto the road with nowhere to go. Her heart tightened at his words. Part of her wanted to accept immediately. Another part warned her to be careful. Depending on someone again felt dangerous after losing her husband. She asked him honestly how long he expected them to stay. He answered honestly as well. He said there was no timeline. He believed people stayed as long as they needed and left when they were ready. He said trust was built over time, not demanded. She looked out at the land as she considered his words. The idea of staying felt both comforting and frightening. Comfort meant safety. Fear meant attachment. And attachment, she knew, could lead to loss. She asked if she could contribute if staying meant working for her place. He agreed, saying he respected people who wanted to stand on their own feet. He suggested simple tasks, helping with meals, light chores, keeping an eye on the children while he worked. Nothing that would exhaust her or put her at risk. That day passed slowly but steadily. She helped where she could, learning the rhythms of the ranch. The children explored nearby areas under her watch, laughing softly, their spirits slowly lifting. The sound of their laughter surprised her. It had been missing for too long. As the sun moved across the sky, she noticed something else. The rancher never watched her in a way that made her uncomfortable. His kindness did not feel heavy or controlling. It simply existed. In the afternoon, she sat alone for a moment, thinking. She remembered her husband's belief in kindness, his trust in people. She wondered if this moment was a test of her own ability to believe again. She knew staying would not erase her pain, but it might give her space to heal. When evening came, the rancher asked if they would stay another night. He did not assume, he asked. That mattered more than he knew. She looked at her children, tired but smiling, safe for now. She nodded. Her voice was stronger this time when she agreed. That night felt different from the first. Fear still existed, but it was quieter. As she lay down beside her children, she allowed herself to imagine tomorrow without immediate danger. That small thought felt like a gift. Outside, the rancher stood looking at the stars. He knew offering shelter was easy compared to offering patience. He understood that trust would take time. He was prepared for that. Neither of them spoke of the future in clear terms. But in the simple choice to stay another night, something shifted. The road no longer felt endless, and the land, once unfamiliar, began to feel like a place where healing might slowly begin. Days passed quietly, one after another, without any clear line marking when temporary became something more steady. The widow woke each morning with the same careful feeling, as if the ground beneath her might still disappear. Yet each day on the ranch followed a calm rhythm that slowly eased her fear. The sun rose, work was done, meals were shared, and night came without trouble. Nothing dramatic happened, and that was what made it feel safe. She began to learn the small routines of the place. She knew when the animals would be fed, when the rancher usually worked near the fence, and when he took short breaks to drink water and look over the land. She helped prepare meals, cleaned, and did small tasks that made the days feel useful. Doing these things gave her a sense of control she had lost after her husband's passing. The children changed the fastest. At first, they stayed close to her, always watching, always quiet. But as days went by, their shoulders relaxed. They ran short distances, laughed more freely, and slept deeply at night. The land gave them space to breathe. Seeing this filled her heart with relief and quiet joy. The rancher noticed these changes too. He said little, but his actions showed care. He fixed small things around the house to make it safer, adjusted his work so loud noises were kept away when the children rested, and always spoke in a calm tone. He respected her boundaries, never pushing for stories she was not ready to share. Sometimes they worked near each other without speaking. Other times they exchanged small conversations about the weather, the land, or the work that needed to be done. These moments slowly built a bridge of trust. She found herself less tense around him, less watchful, though she remained careful. One afternoon, as they prepared food together, she finally spoke about her husband. Not in great detail, just small memories. How he laughed easily. How he taught the children to respect the land. Her voice was steady as she spoke, but her eyes carried quiet sadness. The rancher listened closely, saying nothing until she finished. Then he simply said that her husband sounded like a good man. That simple sentence meant more to her than long speeches ever could. She realized then that grief did not always need fixing. Sometimes it only needed space and respect. The rancher, in his own way, carried weight too. She noticed it in how he paused when certain memories crossed his face, in the way he sometimes stood alone at night looking out over the fields. He did not speak of his past, and she did not ask. Trust, she knew, grew better when not rushed. As weeks passed, the ranch no longer felt like a place borrowed for survival. It began to feel like a shared space. She still reminded herself that she was a guest, but the land itself seemed to accept her and her children. They planted small things near the house, cooked meals that blended her traditions with his simple ways, and slowly shaped a daily life that felt balanced. There were moments of doubt. Some nights she lay awake, wondering if staying was a mistake. Depending on kindness still scared her. She worried about what would happen if the rancher changed his mind, or if the world outside found them again. But each morning, those fears softened when she saw her children safe and rested. The rancher, too, felt change, though he did not name it. The house felt less empty. The quiet no longer pressed in on him as it once had. He found purpose not only in his work but in the shared meals and simple conversations. Still, he kept his respect firm. He knew that crossing lines too quickly could break what they were slowly building. One evening, a small problem tested that trust. A storm rolled in suddenly, strong winds shaking the house and frightening the children. Without thinking, the widow gathered them close, fear rising in her chest. Memories of loss returned quickly. The rancher responded calmly, securing doors and windows, speaking gently, reminding them they were safe. He stayed nearby but gave her space to comfort her children. When the storm passed, something shifted inside her. She realized she had trusted him in a moment of fear, and he had honored that trust. Later that night she thanked him, not with big words, just honest ones. He nodded and said she handled the situation well. For the first time she felt seen not as a burden or a widow, but as a strong woman protecting her family. From that point on, the connection between them deepened in quiet ways. They shared responsibilities naturally. Decisions were discussed, not assumed. Respect guided everything. There was no rush, no pressure to define what they were becoming. She taught her children stories from her people, and sometimes the rancher listened from a distance, learning without intruding. He shared knowledge of the land, showing the children how to care for animals and understand the weather. These shared moments built something solid, something rooted in patience. She still missed her husband deeply. Love for him did not disappear. But she began to understand that honoring his memory did not mean refusing all future kindness. It meant living in a way that protected their children and allowed life to continue with dignity. One evening, as the sun set low, she stood watching her children play. The rancher stood nearby, silent. She felt a quiet understanding between them, not spoken but real. They were two people shaped by loss, choosing care instead of bitterness. She knew the road ahead was still uncertain. Healing was not fast and trust was fragile. But the ranch had become a place where fear did not rule every moment. And for the first time since her husband's passing, she believed that safety and respect could exist side by side. The land did not erase her pain, but it gave her room to carry it without breaking. Time moved forward in gentle steps, not rushing, not stopping. Seasons changed slowly on the ranch, and with each change, the widow and her children grew stronger. What began as a place of shelter had quietly become a place of belonging. The land no longer felt strange under her feet. It felt known. It felt safe. She no longer woke each morning with fear sitting heavy in her chest. Instead, she woke with purpose. There was work to do, meals to prepare, and children to guide. Her days were full but not overwhelming. The pain of losing her husband still lived inside her, but it no longer controlled every thought. Grief became something she carried, not something that crushed her. The children flourished. They learned routines, helped with small chores, and spoke freely again. Their laughter returned fully, ringing across the open land. They slept peacefully and woke with curiosity instead of worry. Watching them heal reminded her why she had kept walking when her strength was nearly gone. The rancher remained steady, just as he had been from the beginning. He did not claim credit for their healing, and he did not act as if he had saved them. He simply shared space, respect, and time. He treated the widow as an equal, asking her thoughts, listening to her ideas, and trusting her judgment. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sky change colors, she spoke words she had been holding back for a long time. She told him that she had not believed kindness like his still existed. She admitted that she had been afraid of staying, afraid of depending on anyone again. Her voice was calm but honest. The rancher listened quietly. When she finished, he said that he understood fear. He shared, for the first time, a small part of his own past. He spoke of losing someone he loved, and how the ranch had once felt like an empty place afterward. He said that helping others had slowly filled that emptiness, not by replacing what was lost, but by giving life a new direction. That conversation did not change everything at once, but it strengthened what already existed. They understood each other better. They knew that their bond was built on shared respect, not on rescue or obligation. As more time passed, neighbors in the area began to notice the change at the ranch. They saw the children playing, the woman working alongside the rancher, and the sense of calm around the place. Some were curious, others cautious. The rancher made it clear through his actions that the family was welcome and protected. He did not explain or defend his choices. He simply lived them. The widow slowly found her confidence again. She made decisions without fear, spoke up when needed, and carried herself with quiet strength. She honored her heritage openly, teaching her children pride and respect for who they were. The rancher supported this without question, understanding that identity was part of healing. One day, as she stood looking over the land, she realized something important. Home was not a building or a piece of land alone. Home was the feeling of safety, dignity, and care. It was waking up without fear and resting without worry. It was knowing that kindness was not temporary. She did not forget where she came from or what she had lost. Those memories remained part of her story, but they no longer defined her future alone. The rancher, too, felt his life settle into something meaningful. The work felt shared, the silence less heavy. He saw purpose in protecting not just land but people. He did not rush toward labels or promises. He believed in letting time shape truth. Their relationship remained grounded and respectful. There was no dramatic declaration, no sudden change. Instead, there was consistency. There was trust. There was care shown in daily actions rather than words. As seasons passed, the widow no longer referred to the ranch as his place. It became home without her even noticing when the word changed. Her children felt it too. They spoke of the land with comfort, not uncertainty. One evening, after a long day, she stood by the doorway watching the sunset. The rancher stood beside her. She spoke softly, repeating the words she once whispered in fear, but now with a different meaning. She said they had found a home. He nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The story did not end with perfection or complete healing. Life remained full of challenges, but it ended with something stronger than fear, belonging built through compassion, patience, and choice. What began as an offer of shelter became a shared life rooted in respect. And in that quiet truth, both of them found a future shaped not by loss, but by the courage to care again.